Welcome back to Cal Park Bros. Jason and I have just discussed the Olympic athlete drama related to Sha'Carri Richardson's um, unfortunate news that she would not be representing the United States of America in track and field in the Tokyo Olympics. In this segment, we're going to be talking about the Lakeshore Drive Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable name change. This was a very big deal for a lot of people. Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable is known to a lot of us who big fans of Chicago as the founder of the city. And a decision was made by the Chicago City Council to effectively change the name of Lakeshore Drive to effectively honor his role as a founder of the city. He was a black trader, first non-indigenous settler in the region, and frankly, there was a lot of people, not just within the city council politician circle, but also citizens that feel that DuSable was not given his just due, and want to give him a certain level of exposure and respect that he obviously deserves. So they opted to rename Lakeshore Drive to Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable Lakeshore Drive in honor of the black trader cited as the first non-indigenous settler of the Midwestern city. Now, Jason, city council leaders voted 33-15 in favor of the change after weeks of debate and tense meetings, reports Becky Vivia of WBEZ Chicago. Mayor Lori Lightfoot initially opposed the name change as she argued it would create chaos at the post office. I'm sorry, that just sounds funny. With many buildings needing to change their addresses. Other opponents of the renaming plan cited the projected cost of sign changes and the road's long history. I'm sorry, that sounds ridiculous. Alderman Sophia King acknowledged the controversy. It's been argued not to change Lakeshore Drive because it's so iconic. I'm sorry. It's just funny. Because they're literally talking about it like it's a fucking person. Jason. Sophia King says, as Justin Lawrence reports for Black Globe Chicago, I argue just the opposite. Let's change it because it's so iconic. I hope our story is that we choose a name that is about racial healing and reckoning to honor our founder, who happens to be Black and Haitian. Although evidence about his early life remains scant, DuSable was likely born on the island of Haiti sometime around 1745 to a French father and a Black enslaved mother, as WTTW reported in a 2010 feature on Chicago's Black history. He was educated in France and then sailed to New Orleans, making his way up the Mississippi River to Illinois. Jason, I know you hung out with hella Chicago people this past weekend. What are your thoughts on this?
So I'll get to some other actual Chicagoans' thoughts. Not that I'm not Chicagoan, but I don't live there currently.
You're not Chicago enough anymore.
Okay, don't go there on this show, sir. We'll talk about that in a different episode, not this one. But so you mentioned before that we were kind of talking about this topic in production meetings prior, and you brought it up the most recent time, and I was saying that it was never going to happen. And then you quickly jumped in and said, well, they just voted to change it 2 days prior to that. So I'm like, what? And, and of course I looked it up into it and everything. And of course you were right and reading some of the articles about it. And you're absolutely correct. The concerns you mentioned, the reasons you mentioned that people were against it were the exact reasons why I figured it would never happen. So I figured it would be enough people going against it because it's so iconic. It would cost the city a lot to do all the changes. It would be a hassle for the post office, things like that. Primarily, I figured they wouldn't want to change it because it is so, again, not my term, but the one you mentioned, iconic. Um, I don't want to use iconic because it's a street, not a person. Um, but I get the point that it is obviously one thing that's very recognizable to Chicago. It's weirdly enough, even though it's not a person in the street, it's on many of the websites related to top things to do in Chicago. Lakeshore Drive is usually right up there, top 10 ish, that same area. So definitely, it's important. It's well known. Um, I think one thing lost in this, well, besides the fact mentioning it, is some people may not even recognize who that person is. John Baptiste Point DuSable. You and I went to a all black or predominantly black elementary school in Calumet Park, Illinois, which is a suburb township of Chicago. They were really big on Black History Month, making sure we knew our history, things like that. I remember all the signs that got put up, all the decorations, all the notable historical facts, all the important black people in Black history. But I was talking about this with someone else who went to Calumet in our same grade level, and we agreed that when it comes to at all, let alone Black History Month, they never told us about John Baptiste Point DuSable. We didn't know who he was. That name never came up. It only came up later as we became adults when it comes to, okay, he's considered the founder of Chicago. And then maybe in that same conversation later, we found out, okay, he was a black man. Oh, really? Didn't know that. So, in one aspect, I'm actually very glad this change happened because it is a chance for people to learn, um, which you can't be denied. You can't ignore that. What I find interesting, though, is, and I have an article I bring up as well about this, what I find interesting is how it became the fact that what the name was changed to. They basically combined the two names, John Baptiste Point DuSable Lakeshore Drive. In an article that I found from, let me go back to it here. It was an article from Chicago, ABC 7 Eyewitness News. Basically, it's an article from June 23rd. It mentions some of the talks and the meetings about this, where it was actually on the table, Terrence, for them to take the Lakeshore Drive part out of it. It was possibly considered it was just going to be John Baptiste Point DuSable Drive. Now that's it. No Lakeshore Drive, that would have been gone. Also, what was approved was for 17 miles on the inner portion, supposedly, of Lakeshore Drive is what's, parts going to be changed to, what we just mentioned, the combination of the two names. Also, that was proposed is it was a whole lot more of it. I wasn't able to get exact mileage, but what was proposed was a roadway, the roadway from also Hollywood to 67th Street. But anyway, so I'm very curious as to, you know, why all that stuff didn't happen. If I had to guess, it might have, well, according to what the article kind of hints at actually, is that Lori Lightfoot, kind of pushed away from that. She was more happy with just the 17 miles and some other things maybe happening within that 17 miles. But I do wonder what the feedback would have been from people if it was be taking away Lakeshore Drive altogether and just John Baptiste Point DuSable Drive. I mean, DuSable Park's already down there, so there's a little hint of it there as well. But like you mentioned, it would be pretty iconic, or at least a big deal, huge deal, if Lakeshore Drive went away altogether. It was just JBPD Drive, or something like that. So I think it's very interesting, a very good change, very surprising, obviously, given what I mentioned before. But now, again, I'm gonna get to some of the feedback I kind of garnered over the weekend and since. But what are your actual thoughts about this, besides your comical reaction you had earlier regarding the reasoning behind it?
Well, my comical response was not in response to the alderman. It was more because what she was addressing was that, well, you can't change it because it's iconic. Listen, them motherfuckers changed the Sears Tower to Willis. So all bets are off for everything else Chicago you ever loved. Okay. The only thing they may not actually change is the Garrett's popcorn. That being said, you change a name. Just because you change the name of something doesn't mean I'm going to stop referring to it as Lakeshore Drive. You know? Just because they snapped up Marshall Fields doesn't mean I magically wanted to call the shit Macy's. No. If there's one thing people don't like is when you change the names of shit, even if it's for a good reason. I'm conflicted on the name change, if for no other reason that, hell, what's the right way to truly honor the founder of Chicago? The best fucking city of all time. Okay?
Best city in the world, son. Chi-town. Stay down.
Will Kanye West's Drive Slow hit the same now that they've changed the name of Lakeshore Drive? That's the real question that I need to know. I'll only know that by actually playing it the next time I'm on DuSable Drive.
Yeah,
I also need to go back to the DuSable Museum. Jason, that would be one hell of a field trip, man. To go back to DuSable, especially now that museums are opened up, because that did leave an indelible mark on us as children when you're told that you can be many things in your life. If a guy that was a trapper and an immigrant founded one of the great metropolitans of the world, and he looks like you. So that does absolutely shape history, and it shapes minds and spirits and bodies. And yes, we should find a way to honor uh, DuSable. Was this the best way to do it? I don't know. I know that as long as the DuSable Museum never has to worry about money, and it shouldn't, and people actually know the background behind why this happened, and I'm actually glad. This is not your typical situation where it's like, hey, you know that Confederate general we've been naming this all black school for the last 150 fucking years? Yeah, we got to change the name because that Confederate general didn't want these black kids to be free. It's not that type of scenario. Lakeshore Drive is not a fucking person, okay? So it's iconic because it's in Chicago. It's not iconic because of the name. I think that was not a great selling point for, oh, we need to keep the name because it's iconic. What's iconic is the fact it's in Chicago. And the fact that DuSable, an icon himself, will get some shine because of this, I'd say overall it's a win. And guess what? Me as a black person, not going to get mad at anybody if they just want to keep calling it Lakeshore Drive. I still call Willis Tower Sears Tower. No judgment. Jason, what did some of your people say in the city when you saw them this past weekend about this name
So
change?
first off, I'm definitely going to judge you as I always do. I'm going to keep doing that every single day, but I'm okay. It's all right. It's okay. I'm still your friend. It's all good.
Aw.
But I'm not about to tear you down. But no, just kidding. Um, yeah, I agree with you about the name change. They can change it to whatever they want. No disrespect to JBPD, but
Just stop. Just stop with the acronyms, dude.
why you don't like acronyms?
If your main goal is to confuse the everlasting fuck out of people, by all means do it.
I don't think people need help. For me getting confused, but fine. You know, I'm still going to call it Lakeshore Drive. Just like you said, people still call it the Sears Tower. Now, the one thing I will say though, I'm definitely going to be more probably transitioning to calling it John Baptist Point DuSable Drive, just because I don't feel as strong of a connection to Lakeshore Drive as I did the Sears Tower. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who didn't know the name was changed, it was actually changed back in 2009 from Sears Tower to Willis Tower, way back when. Doesn't seem that long ago, but yeah, 2009. But anyway, yeah, I felt more of a connection to the Sears Tower, so that's why I feel like I'm still going to call it the Sears Tower because that, like you said, that was or is Chicago. That building, you know, Lakeshore Drive. It's a road. I don't think I got more familiar with Lakeshore Drive until became an adult and actually might have started using it. You know, and I think the first time we used it was back when me and you were going to Taste of Chicago. Back when you got your Cutlass. Actually, no, take that back. The black. I want to say Roadmaster, but I could be wrong. The black Buick, we'll say. Um, so really, until then, didn't really have any connection to Lakeshore Drive. So I can easily call it, you know, JBPD Drive. Confused yet? But but yeah, but definitely, man. You know, one some feedback I did get is that I mentioned before when it comes to Juneteenth and it not being really very genuine. One person mentioned that this is cool and it's cute and everything, but it's really just kind of to them it's kind of masking to basically avoid getting deeper into the real issues. Um, like you, many of them said they're still going to call it Lakeshore Drive. One, probably because it's easier, let alone what they're used to. One person said that they definitely don't feel like there should be any type of naming rights to streets, but they feel like if you're going to name new streets like that, you should definitely do it like in new neighborhoods as opposed to changing the name of like iconic stuff. They didn't use the word iconic, but basically the wording they did use is basically similar to that. Um, One other person had an interesting point is that they were very happy about it because they have in-law relatives that are actually Haitian, and they actually felt like it was pretty cool that their relative would be able to kind of get a huge part of Chicago named after someone who comes from their home country of Haiti. So there was that perspective there. Um, but again, overall, like you said, people either didn't really hit with them on the radar with them making them mad or making them too happy. They had their opinions about whether it should happen, whether it shouldn't have happened. Um, and again, some people feel like it wasn't enough. They feel like it should have been more. They feel like it should have been more of Lakeshore Drive, not just 17 miles of it. Some people were thinking, well, why not the whole thing? At least as far as the part that actually ranges within what's considered Chicago. Um, and that part I really get. I mean, why just 17 miles? Why are we cutting it off? I'm sure there's a reason behind it. Probably nothing valid. I'm sure maybe helping the post office out a little bit more so I don't have to change so many signs or so many business addresses and whatnot, which I think may be a costly problem. And I get that as far as financially. But if you're going to do it right. I mean, just go ahead and give us more. And I say us, as in I know I'm not from Chicago, or not. I don't live in Chicago, rather. But still. But one thing I will say, I have seen some. This is in the minor. I haven't seen a whole lot of this. This isn't people that I know, but I have seen people say that they are against the name change because they feel like they're only changing it not just because it's to the founder of Chicago. They're just changing it to placate the black people. That hey, we're changing. Kind of like what one other person mentioned. We're just changing this to because it's a black person. Like if it was a white guy who was a founder of Chicago, we'll be looking to change it. Um, I've seen that feedback a couple of times. Again, that's still a minority um, of the feedback that I've heard, but it's definitely something I have heard. Um, and in some regard, I see that person's point or those people's points. But again, my thought
I don't see that point because that's not what's been happening. It's like that's literally the crux of this situation.
is it
You know,
what's happening?
it's not like we're talking about replacing Mayor fucking Pulaski here. Like, cut the shit, man. Not you, but people that make that false equivalency discussion that, well, you guys wouldn't be okay with changing this if it was named after this person. It's not fucking named after a person. So we're not going to have that fucking debate.
No, I'm talking about the points they're making is if it was named, well, yeah, they're changing it to obviously the name of a person. They're changing it to that. But what they're saying is the point was that would they be doing this if the founder of Chicago was actually not a black man? That's what they're saying. If John Baptist Point DuSable was from Germany or something or France rather, a white guy will be looking to change it, or you're just trying to change it to placate people. And I want. Let me say this: that point was made by people who weren't just black or weren't just white or someone else that wasn't black. So I will say that right there. But that was their point. I get their point. I'm not going to say I agree with it, but I get it. You know, their point made sense, even though it probably wasn't the fact or the case at all. But overall, I'd say it's a good thing. And being consistent, I have to agree that it's in some shape or fashion disingenuous in a way, or perhaps a better phrasing is to say it's really. I really don't want to use the word pointless, but I really think is it really does it really matter? Does it really change anything when it comes to the real issues in Chicago? I'd have to say anybody who thinks about it would have to say no. But again, just like I said about Juneteenth, not to say this isn't a good thing at all, but of all things going on in Chicago, the benefit, or I don't want to say benefit black people, but for all things going on in Chicago, that might be of a positive light for black people. This is really minor.
I mean, you said with all that's going on, I feel like you just need to address the 800-pound gorilla in the room. You mean with all of the violence that's happening, and since we've reopened the economy, and since it's summertime, it's open season, and shootings have gone through the fucking
But to
roof.
be clear,
Like, if you're gonna say it, say it.
but to be
Don't fucking dance around.
but to be clear, yeah, what you just said. But let's be clear, this is not a Chicago only problem when it comes to the shootings and things like that. It's pretty much every major city in the U.S. right now. You know, it's not just Chicago. It's not just D.C. It's not just L.A., New York, Kansas City. You know, whatever city you want to name, it's all of them. Indianapolis included, unfortunately. Okay, but yes, that is what I was referring to. All the shootings and the violence going on in the city right now. Again, it's a positive thing. Them changing the name to what they did, JP, PD, LSD. I know you like that. Hashtag it. Um, but in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to us of our persuasion, we'll say it's a really minor deal, and is what it is. But let's make sure this is not it.
Yeah, Jason, I see your point there. I do think there is value in knowing one's history, you know, and I think maybe had we not had the benefit of being made to go to the DuSable Museum, we maybe don't have the perspective that we do regarding his legacy. Um, but I look at something like this regarding clearly documenting the founding of a major metropolitan area. That's actually a win. That's not a win for black people. That's actually a win for white people because you have a right to know the lineage and the legacy just as much as everybody else.
I do agree, but one thing I want to put out there on the air or on wax, as you always say, is that you've mentioned these field trips to DuSable Museum several times, and I gotta tell you, as I told you before, I don't remember us ever going to that museum ever for a field trip at Calumet School ever. And I've been reaching out to some other people that went to school with us to see if they remember. Haven't heard back from them yet, but yeah, yeah. If you listen to this and you went to Calumet School in any time in the 90s, if you recall going there on a field trip, let us know. Send us the emails, calpartbros@gmail.com. Because I don't remember that. So I'm going to, I don't know. I think Terrence is crazy, but yeah. So I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
You know what it is? You know what it is? Everybody forgets to do DuSable trip, but everybody fucking remembers Dance Africa. Fuck you guys.
I sure do.
So, I mean, it's possible that I just lucked out and I had family members that like, hey, we should go check this out. But I'm willing to bet chances are the only reason I would have checked something out like that is because we were effectively voluntold to go. So I can't be. Listen, I might be crazy, but I'm pretty sure that was a Calumet school sponsored trip. So we should reach out to some of our Calumet Park peoples.
The messages are out to him, so we'll hear back.
Yeah, you're reaching out one by one though. We need to like send out a fucking beacon.
Oh, I've got plenty of messages out there. Trust me. Since you had that meeting, when we had the meeting the other day, you brought it up. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't recall this. Am I the only one? So the messages are out there. A few today, of course, but yeah, we're gonna reconvene on this one. Not on the show, but yeah, we'll come back to it.
Right on. All right. That concludes our DuSable Lakeshore Drive name change discussion. Coming up, we'll wrap up the show with any final thoughts for episode 12 on Cal Park Bros.